Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Things are escalating thanks to the Wisconsin National Mustard Museum.
What are they doing?
They posted a sign at the National Mustard Museum just south of Madison there. The Russian mustards have been temporarily removed.
Oh, okay.
They will return once the invasion of Ukraine is over and Russia recognizes and respects the sovereign nation of Ukraine. And not a minute before that happens will those Russian mustards be returned.
Such misguided energy sometimes, don't you think?
Montreal Orchestra cancels Russian piano prodigy due to mob bigotry. Yeah. A Russian piano prodigy who actually has spoken out against Putin dropped from its concert lineup because of anti-Russian sentiment and woke, tolerant, enlightened Montreal. I mean, we've documented all sorts of examples of this, but I think for more general commentary, let's turn it over to one of our favorite satirists on social media, Ryan Long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since I transformed into a Ukraine guy, and gotta say that I'm loving my new personality. Will you guys denounce Russia? Oh, you're still telling people to stay at home and get vaccinated? Oh, no, it's cool. I mean, yeah, whatever works for you, dude. Ukraine for life. Well, you know what I mean, for a couple weeks till we get the next one. This was Putin. I'd just sort of give him one of these, maybe one of these. I was a big Palestine guy. I was a big Afghanistan guy. What's going on there now? Yeah, actually, pretty good question. I haven't really checked in on it.
Oh my God.
Are they still doing the whole being a country thing? Oh, look, it's Putin's home. You either want America to get in there and start mucking things up, or you love Putin and want to marry him and have sex with him. Yeah, I'm a pretty binary thinker.
Pretty much.
I'm non-binary in everything else, though. Would the dog be willing to denounce Vladimir Putin?
I don't want to be on TV, but I don't.
We'll remember that. That's all I'm saying. That will be remembered. I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, they wouldn't be white, but at least the bad guys are white, you know? I try to look on the bright side. I think we should just be blocking the airspace and then, you know, let the cards fall. You know, if it's war, then it's war. It's not like I'm fighting personally. I'm not like some soldier. I mean, if you ask me, Iraq was probably holding the WMDs for Putin. A little industry secret, but if you move on to a new personality, you never really have to be held accountable for how right or wrong you were about your last thing. Found out this is a Russian microwave, so getting rid of that. I won't eat Russian soup. I refuse to eat Russian vodka. Yeah, I know there's other war stuff happening all over the place, but maybe if they wanted people to care, they should get better at going viral. How many TikTok stars does Yemen have out on the forefront? Just put the old thing out of sight, out of mind, you know? Sort of like Bart Simpson did when he put his guitar in the garage next to his karate outfit in the unicycle. Where's Ukraine? Beside Russia. Where's Russia? In Russia. I asked my stepdad to formally denounce Putin on his social media, and he told me he didn't have social media, so I guess we're not going to be having a family dinner this week. Yeah, I'm one of the first people to start being about Ukraine once the news started talking about it, so if anything, I'm a bandwagon finder. Censorship also just really gives me a boner, so it's nice to have a new avenue to participate on that front. If people want to post the wrong information about the election, COVID, Ukraine, I mean, yeah, they should be reprimanded. Whether they have their channels taken down, or if I had my say, a prison sentence. Cuomo, Fauci, Zelensky. Just a bunch of guys that I would call daddy. All I'm saying is if you're watching this video right now, you better not be Russian or there'll be consequences for you to pay. It's crazy. Some people will say that there's propaganda on both sides, when in reality, there's only propaganda on one side. Sorry, I get a little emotional when I'm just thinking of how brave the Ghost of Kiev was.
How brave the what?
Ghost of Kiev.
Russia should be nuked. Yeah, I was writing stay-at-home raps. I wrote a Putin rap. Putin, you're a doofus. Gonna get these 2 fists and these boots, bitch, and your tooth's kicked.
Yeah, it's nice. He's still working on the rap, but you get the commentary. For more on this, pleased to be joined by John Nolte, Breitbart News senior writer. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So you suggest in your piece, not satirically, that some of the Republicans who are beating the drums of war, like the Lindsey Grahams of the world, risk derailing Republicans' chances to retake both chambers come November.
This is something I'm a little less worried about than I was when I wrote that piece, because the Republicans seem to have steadied, except for people like Mitt Romney. But when I saw Sean Hannity on Fox News talking about no-fly zones and bombing Russians and trying to blame it on someone else, I got a little worried, because like what you're like what your previous, with the recording you played, the satirist. I mean, you could see this moral panic, this war fever growing throughout the country. And I was very concerned, and I'm still somewhat concerned it's going to infect the right, because what the left is doing with the war is basically transferring all their zealotry we saw around George Floyd and all the zealotry that then transferred to the coronavirus, and now it's transferred over to this to Vladimir Putin, and we're seeing the same nonsense. Instead of being reasonable about it and rational about it, and allowing us basically as a country to unite around our disgust at Putin's war crimes, they are pushing us away and making sure we can't unite by doing all this crazy stuff, which is, like the things you mentioned earlier. They're blacklisting these performers. We wouldn't even do that stuff during the Cold War. And after 20 years of losing wars, the idea that A, we should go into Ukraine, or B, we could do any good in Ukraine is ludicrous. And I can tell you that from everyone I deal with on social media and in the comments and that I talk to, the last thing Republicans and Trump supporters want is any involvement in this war beyond, the financial sanctions. And if the Republicans get the war fever, and like Mitt Romney has just gotten, and thank gosh, he's not really one of us, that would kill our chances, because the last thing people want is to get us involved in another war we can't win.
So Senator Romney thinks we could liberate Ukraine?
Well, he I don't know if he thinks that, but he's talking about, he's flirting with no-fly zones, and Kinzinger is talking about that, and that lunatic Lindsey Graham is openly, a United States senator openly trying to prod people in Russia to assassinate Putin. I mean, the guy's got nukes. I mean, forget the fact that we haven't won a war in 40 years. He's got nukes. So I don't know what they're thinking. I don't, but it's just nuts, because we can't do any good over there. And even if we could do any good, it's not our problem. We need to stay out of it.
Well,
and if that becomes the issue in 2022, it's going to kill. It's not going to. I think we're still going to take over the Congress. But what I see coming, which is a tsunami, a red tsunami, that's actually going to realign our politics, the chance of that is going to diminish greatly.
Looking at some of the recent polling, Byron York wrote about this. It's dismal for the Democrats and for Biden. But he points out in the survey that he dissected, they do have a few strengths, and one of them is actually quite depressing. They have an 11-point lead in which party is best able to get the pandemic under control. Now, as York points out, that may or may not be much of an issue come November. But still, the fact that after the last 2 years, they have that margin to their benefit on pandemic policy is really, really disquieting. It sort of goes to this idea that they have perfected in terms of how they play politics. Activity can obfuscate results. If we're the most active party, if we're saying the things that we're doing, saving lives, getting this under control, defeating the virus, and so on and so forth, then it doesn't matter that what we're actually doing is ineffectual to counterproductive.
Yeah, the only good news in that, and I saw the article, the piece that you're talking about. The only good news in that is that number has plummeted over the last year. But you're right, it is dispiriting, because what you see is, if you look at the facts, more people died under Joe Biden, and he had a vaccine, and then died under Donald Trump. So yes, there are things like that just feel counterintuitive, but you're right. I think it is just more activity, more moral preening can sometimes be confused with doing something that helps. And sometimes, there's a big part of the public that just wants to see, quote unquote, something done.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's why we're doing yoga for Ukrainian refugees next Tuesday.
Right.
I'm not making this stuff
right.
up.
You're doing your part.
I'm doing the down
Part of the
dog.
war
I'm,
effort.
yeah, it's part of the
it's
war
part
effort.
of the war effort.
So
Yeah.
anything we could do.
Yeah, you're Rosie the Riveter over there, Amy the yoga enthusiast for Ukraine. I mean, that's the no,
It's a
but,
normal
but,
class I go to, but they've decided to, proceeds, and we'll all go to help Ukrainian refugees.
but that really does go to this larger cultural issue, John. Though of just exactly, the level of intellect and maturity you're dealing with when it comes to wide swaths of the electorate.
It's moral exhibitionism, and it's a form of McCarthyism, where everybody's trying to outdo everyone else to prove their purity. Mm-hmm. So they'll go to the point of ridiculousness, like yoga for Ukraine. I wouldn't send a penny to Ukraine. Does anyone really think that money's going to get there? There's a button on my Facebook page that I can add so people can donate to Ukraine. So, I want Ukraine to humiliate Putin. Don't get me wrong, but I know it's just the grift. It's all grifting, and that money's never going to get there. It's ridiculous. But we are in this phase, and we saw with George Floyd, and we saw with the coronavirus, and now we see it here, where there's this McCarthyism going on. You're either on my side or you're a witch, and I'm going to prove my purity by proving how impure you are because you won't do yoga for Ukraine. It's just nuts, and hopefully it's not going to catch on. And the good news, the polling I've seen recently says the public doesn't want any part of Ukraine. So the war fever that's going on, and it's not just happening on the left; it's also happening in the left-wing media. The way that they're portraying it, the what's happening in Ukraine, which is awful. But you can just see what they're doing, repeating, trying to generate emotional blackmail. You can see it in the artists, the way that they're approaching it, in Hollywood and whatnot, and of course, all of it is generated by War Incorporated. The munitions people, the weapons people, the FBI, the CIA, the Pentagon, they love this stuff. But thankfully, it's not working. It worked in Iraq. It worked on me, to my eternal shame. But I don't see it working in the polls, and I think that has a lot to do with new media just stepping back and going, whoa, wait a minute. We need to think about this. We just got out of a 20-year war we lost against cave-dwelling goat herders. I mean, do you guys really want to go up against the Russians? Mm-hmm. So I think that that's the good news in this, is that the public is not falling for it.
Well, there's something else too. Another survey that the GOP would do well to pay attention to, and this the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is in its 20th year, surveying sort of global attitudes about how things are going for people in terms of their own economic security interests. 65% of the worldwide informed public, as described by the survey, that's 25 to 65, university educated, in the top 25% of household incomes. So a distinct minority of the world population. 65% of the worldwide informed public says they trust their institutions. Only 51% of the mass public said the same. So you barely have a majority of 83% of the total global population saying they trust these institutions. And that is also something on the decline. It's this chasm that's described by this survey of trust in institutions between essentially the elite and the deplorables. And what Trump identified in 2016 persists to 2022.
Yeah, and that distrust, that's so important. It's so vital to distrust and be skeptical of institutions. And you can see why there's that chasm. The elites, the institutions serve them. The elites want power, and they get power through the institutions. The elites love an orderly society. Institutions can do that. The rest of us understand that true freedom is messy, and that the more messy it is, the more that says about how free we are. So that chasm is there, but obviously we outnumber them, and hopefully a politician, maybe Trump or DeSantis, can take advantage of that in 2024. They seem to be the two politicians who truly get it. I just cannot imagine the wipeout a Mitt Romney would face if he ran again in this environment.
John Nolte, Breitbart News senior writer. John, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Grandview buys homes. Hi, I'm Tom Detlich, and for more than a decade, Grandview has been the name you know and the name you trust. Now we have gone to the next level of making your home selling process stress and hassle-free. Grandview will still buy your home in as little as 10 days. We'll still buy your home completely as is. No repairs, not even a clean out. But now we'll also give you up to $10,000 cash in advance of your closing. In most cases, you can have your cash in less than 48 hours from when you accept Grandview's Fair Cash offer. There are so many ways this cash advance makes your selling experience stress and hassle-free. Use the money to pay for moving expenses, down payment funds, security deposits, repairs on your new home, maybe even a little getaway to relieve some stress. Anything you choose. Instead of having to wait for your home sale to close, you can get up to $10,000 in advance. You don't need to put off selling your home another moment. And of course, we insist you'll leave the stress and the mess to us. So call or click today to get your Fair Cash offer. GrandviewHomes.com.
Dan Proft here again for Northridge Prep. You've heard me talk about Northridge before, but what exactly makes this school so special? In short, it's the all-boys environment. Boys can just be boys, but surrounded with mentors and teachers who build them up into men of intellect and character who love God. They've been doing it for nearly 50 years, and one of the things that stands out to me is their commitment to partnering with parents. Now, you hear this with a lot of schools, but at Northridge, the parents can't stop talking about it. They've built a community that really works together.